Welcome to Chris McDaniel's America. Another great episode today on the Midnight Ride Conservative Network. Jack, thank you for being here as always.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
There's an awful lot to talk about today. And where do you go from the Olympics, right? How do you rebound from what we all witnessed just a few days ago with the Olympic opening ceremonies? I remember as I turned over, I don't know why I turned over, but I did. And when I turned over there, I watched just enough to make me a bit angry. And I posted on social media almost immediately, and I was just talking about the liberal nature of the Olympics this year, and if that's the way it's going to be, they can count me out. And there was a pretty huge response to that post, and I think people understand that traditionally speaking, I'm not really easily offended. I have been through every political grind mill there is. I've been called everything under the sun. I don't get offended easily, and I'm really technically not terribly offended in so many ways by what I witnessed, but it showed me again what I believe to be a greater problem facing this country and facing Western civilization. It's the idea that there seems to be two sets of rules. And we've talked about those rules here on this show before. It's not just the rules with the political establishment and the way they create rules for themselves and then rules for us. There's another set of rules that are being firmly established in this country. And this new set of rules seems to run counter to almost everything that we believe in. And I think it's fair to say that our set of rules, those traditional rules that we grew up with, whether it be morality or culture or the church, I think our set of rules probably go against everything that they believe in. So you have this great battle occurring. Some have called it a civil war, a cultural civil war. I'm not sure what the term is. I just know that there's this great fight over the ideas of what should be constituting this country, but not just this country, decency as a whole, right versus wrong, the way European societies, Western civilizations have traditionally seen themselves and how we've always seen ourselves as well. That's not just with government. I mean, with government, we know we had this rush of liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I mean it in the loosest sense of the term, going back to the 1700s, because there was a time the term liberal wasn't as bastardized as it is today. There was a time when you talked about liberals in the 1700s, they were called classical liberals, and they believed in free markets and free minds, and they wanted to put down these old notions of dictatorship and oligarchs. They were about individual liberty. Modern liberalism has nothing in common with that, but if you start back with liberal concepts and liberal thoughts, and you move forward till today, there was always some consistent themes. Think about it. From the American standpoint, we believed, just like the French once did, a strong believer in independence, a strong believer in liberty, a strong believer in meritocracy, the belief that people have to work hard for a living to conduct themselves accordingly. They sometimes would need religion to do that. Those were shared beliefs, not just across the pond in Western Europe, but here in this country, because we had the fruits of Western civilization planted here as well. Now, this new idea that we're seeing runs counter to that. And I can't think of a better visual description of that hostility than what we saw just the other night during the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. Dennis Prager had a story today. He probably posted it, I guess, the day before yesterday. And I love the title. He says, "You don't have to be Christian to loathe the opening ceremony." Interesting. You see, he's Jewish. And yet, watching it, he got the same impression that I got. That is, something more is really at play here. This isn't really simply about trying to offend any longer. They're testing boundaries. They're trying to figure out what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. And we've seen for the last 40 years, they've gotten away with pretty much everything imaginable. Religion in this country, just like in Europe, I don't like to say this, but it's dwindling, diminishing.
Yep.
And at the current rates, we're watching churches dry up in Europe. We're going to see that here shortly. We know that people are more unchurched than ever. Church attendance is down across the board. And look, I've been guilty of that as well. We all get busy. But we're seeing a trend develop, not just something isolated. People are falling away from Christianity. The question for this show and others is, how do you fall away from Christianity, which is the beating heart of Western civilization, and not incur significant damage to Western civilization? I think some philosophers have argued that it's one and the same.
I think that's accurate.
Christianity and Western civilization can't thrive without one and the other. You think about Europe and how it's founded, and the wars they've had, the conflicts they've had, but also the great beauty they've created, the art and the music and the structure and the architecture, all of which is based in large part on Christianity. Now people say that's not so. It is so. Now the modern European Union may not believe that. I noticed in their charter they don't even mention the word Christianity, but old Europe was filled with these ideas. And so was young America. Now, the other night, during the Olympics, let's not kid ourselves. They knew exactly what they were doing. What is funny is this. All of my liberal friends, I don't have many liberal friends, Jack. All of my liberal acquaintances.
Let's say
some.
liberal agitators,
I have
because
some.
most of the ones on your page are agitators.
Well, here's the thing. You know this. I don't mind having friends of different political viewpoints. I never have. I have a lot of gay friends. I have straight friends. I have Christian friends. I have atheist friends. It's just part of living in America, right? Yeah. Now, we all disagree on some of these things, and that's fine. But the friendship notion is really interesting when you consider that how much we've really been divided here lately. And so you almost say friends, and you don't know if they're truly your friends any longer. They may hate me now for the things that I've said. I hope that's not the case. But I watched this thing unfold the other night. And interesting, it's too light of a word. All right, they knew what they were doing, first of all. We know that for a fact because if you look at the original name in French of the actual parade float itself, it seemed to talk specifically about this Last Supper creation. We know the director must have known. If an artistic director in France could not have known this was going to be controversial, he should have been fired immediately.
Yep.
Everyone knew what this was aiming toward. Before I go any further, did you actually get a chance to see it?
I saw it after the fact. I didn't see it live.
Okay. Did you see the big lady at the center of the piece?
I did.
The center of the Last Supper painting recreation.
Yes.
You know, she's an activist, you know.
I saw that.
Yeah. I'll let you guess which side she's on.
Oh, definitely not ours. Definitely not ours.
Yeah, definitely not ours. She's an activist, and she even referred to herself as a deity in some respects on social media. I think she called herself Olympic Jesus, didn't she?
She did. I saw that.
So again, all of my friends who are liberals all of a sudden became experts overnight on Greek mythology. Did you notice that?
I did.
You know, these folks are amazing. One day they're experts on the coronavirus and medical science. The next day they're all constitutional law experts.
Yep.
And then boom, all of a sudden they know more about Greek mythology than anybody. Sure you do. You had no idea that had anything to do with Greek mythology until you were saved by some pin-headed professor somewhere and said, hey, this could be something besides offensive. But don't kid yourselves. You know exactly what you were doing. Now granted, Greek mythology and Roman mythology have a lot of similarities. And the blue guy wearing the diaper, you know, God of wine, God of mischief, call him what you want to. It was mischievous, all right, because he said some things and did some things that appeared very objectionable. But let's go back to the issue here, to all my expert friends in Greek mythology. Put that aside. And let me ask you a question. Had that kind of nonsense been targeted, either directly or indirectly, either intentionally or unintentionally, to any one of your protected groups, you would have gone absolutely berserk. Had that been some sort of recreation of a strong gay and lesbian orchestrated historical event whereby you somehow twisted it and changed it, Rome and France would have burned down that evening. The same for any other number of protected entities in this country, right? I don't want to get into all this today, but let's think about it. Transsexuals even now, the gender issue even now, women even now, African Americans even now, hell, Asian Americans even now. Any number of attacks one can make, unless, okay, there's two groups right now that seem to be really open for attack. Who are they? Christians and Jews.
Yep.
Let's not kid ourselves. It seems to me the whole world has said these two can be set apart and attacked, and you won't do anything about it. But that's the concern I've got, because again, if Christianity and the West are intertwined, and Western civilization in large part was built on this fabric, and now it's being ripped away from us, and now it's being challenged, and as some commentators have said, mocked. If there's not a response, if there's not some sort of defense of the faith,
yeah,
what then?
Well, it's crazy, Chris, that there are those that want to try to defend this art director. Yet the Paris officials running the Olympics were quick to apologize after it aired. Now, they should have never, they should have known what was going to happen.
And it was a terrible apology. Did
Yeah,
you see that?
it was.
It was kind of like, we were sorry we made you mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't win.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried that with a girlfriend? I'm sorry I made you mad.
That's the reason I'm single.
Some things just don't work. How about it? First of all, why apologize if it was all simply a matter of Greek mythology? You could have just set the record straight.
Yeah.
But you didn't, because you knew exactly what it was, and you bet there wouldn't be an outrage. And there was an outrage. The interesting part was the counter outrage, because it was kind of like, what are you people even thinking? This is ridiculous.
That's what drove me crazy, was all these folks, and it was the same people. They were calling everybody sheep for believing this, yet they were all sharing the same Facebook post. They were acting like sheep while accusing others of being sheep.
Do you double standard much?
Very much
That's the
so.
question. Do you double standard much? And that's really the problem here. Because if I look at the portrayal, there's a part of me that's like, I didn't like it. But I wasn't really terribly offended. What gets me, and I think it's a lot of Americans and Christians out there, is this double standard we're witnessing. Whereas you can offend one group but not another. Whereas you can attack one group but not another. You can mock one group but not another. I think that offends people. It should if you're a person of common sense. The bigger question is, why? It's a paradox, isn't it? What I call the paradox of marginalization. Have you ever considered that? Why is it in this society that certain groups are placed off limits, or some groups are allowed to be attacked at will? The answer lies in political correctness. It lies in what professors would say the marginalization of groups that historically have been oppressed. And they seem to make the argument that if a group has been oppressed historically, that group cannot, by definition, be the oppressor.
Yes.
I disagree with that. It's logically inconsistent. I get your argument. I just think it's strange to set aside a new set of rules for those historically oppressed and allow them to attack with impunity those that have always been in an advantaged position.
Yeah.
Now, they'll argue the church deserves this attack because the church has always been advantaged. It's always been very powerful. Is that a justification to mock somebody?
No.
By your own logic, you're always talking about feelings. You're always talking about humanity. You're always talking about coming together and kumbaya. I think on the back of those liberal cars, there's always a bumper sticker. What does that bumper sticker always say?
Coexist?
Coexist. But we're not coexisting right now.
No.
We're just taking your shots. We're taking your body shots, and you expect to sit back and just take this. And what's kind of infuriating is that there are Christians among us. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not a perfect guy by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a pastor. But there are people among us that seem to want to sit this one out. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
God doesn't need your work. He can handle this himself. I disagree with that assessment. I'm not suggesting that an omnipotent God can't do things. He can. He could probably, snap a finger and change the world if he wished.
Yeah.
But whether we like it or not, he's always worked through people.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's King David or Esther, whoever the case may be, he's worked through people. And I think if you're going to be obedient, I think one of the terms of obedience would be defense of the faith, would it not? I'm not saying be a jerk. I'm not saying be judgmental. I don't like judgmental people either. I get it. It's problematic. But there does come a point in time where as Christians or just conservatives, anybody, Jews, Dennis Prager, anybody, that you just say, you know what, that was over the top. That was too much. And then ask the follow-up question, why do you think that's right? Because it violates everything you claim you preach. Tolerance? Where was the tolerance on display with that ridicule? There's no tolerance there.
None.
Now, they tried to justify it as tolerance.
I saw that.
Give me a break. It's always the same code word with these people. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no logic. But I do believe this. They are at war with Western civilization. Think about it. The standards. And I'm going to get to something else in a minute. I'm talking culturally right
Yes.
now. We'll talk about Ms. Harris in a minute and her own unique war on Western civilization. By the way, did you see what Trump said about her today?
I did. I did.
Strange.
Yeah, I don't think that's the strategy that his campaign's going to want him to take. I think
I don't know. He seems to know what he's doing. We'll figure this out.
Anytime I say he's wrong, I get proven wrong. So maybe I don't
want to second guess him. He's worked so far. But we have this unique situation that if the West really is under attack, that is, its culture, its institutions, when we know its institutions are, let's not kid ourselves. Every institution in this country is under immense attack from the American left. Systemically hostile because it's systemically racist, systemically sexist, right?
Yes.
And so they're under attack, the institutions here. We know the European institutions have been for some time. When you can take a place like France, which historically speaking was a bastion of individual liberty, and now the people in France don't feel comfortable speaking their minds because there are speech codes in place, because people can be sued for defamation by telling the truth, and some people even argue there should be criminal laws in effect where you criticize certain marginalized groups. Do you see the problem here?
It's very problematic.
So how do you have this cornerstone of individual liberty in France and turn it into a liberal nightmare? We better be watching because it's coming here.
Yes.
It's coming here. Now, speaking of that, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this Olympic thing, and I'm not done, because the crazy lady that was sitting in the center, you know what her name is, don't you?
What is her actual name?
You got to take a wild guess, because
I have no clue. I'm drawing a complete blank.
I may be reading this wrong, and if I am, Lord, forgive me. Barbara Bush.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I would have never guessed that. Not in a million years.
Is that even allowable? Can we say Barbara Bush? Speaking, never mind. It's beside the point.
You just got us
Well,
canceled.
here's the thing. She's lawyering up. She's lawyering up right now because the Olympic Jesus, as she called herself, right now, she thinks that she's been marginalized. Of course, she has. She's double marginalized. She's marginalized squared. First of all, she was part of this thing, and now she feels like she's being discriminated against, and now she's about to sue a bunch of people. And under French law, it turns out she might be successful. There was a law professor today, Jonathan Turley, talking about the difference between French law and American law, where we still today just barely value the First Amendment. Over there really isn't a First Amendment.
No.
Right? And so they've always treasured speech, but now when certain groups get into authority and they try to use force and coercion to get their way, one of the first things you have to control is thought, and that comes with speech. She's actually going to be suing a whole bunch of people, and he thinks her chances of success are going to be high. So how rich is that? Barbara Bush sits there, pretends to be Jesus or whoever, call her a Greek god. I don't know what she was doing. I just know it was offensive, and now she stands to profit from it. That's an upside-down world.
It's ridiculous, Chris, because, I mean, again, she made a choice. She made a choice to put herself in the center of controversy. They knew this was going to be controversial when they did it, and I don't care what anybody says. Sure, maybe they had some Greek mythology sprinkled in there, but they knew what they were attempting to do when they put that up there. They knew that there were going to be people that were going to draw that comparison. They did it intentionally. They didn't care, and there's no reason why this Barbara Bush person would refer to herself as Olympic Jesus if she didn't know that was going to be, or if that wasn't what they were aiming for.
Well, Dennis Prager made an excellent point here, and I want you to think about this as before we transition into Ms. Harris and her circus of laughter. One reason he says that Christians are attacked the way they are. This is Prager, and I think he makes an excellent point here. He says, one would think that these liberal-minded people would be attacking Muslims, radical Islamic folk. Can we even say that? Is there such thing as a radical Islamic?
They're a protected group.
All right,
They're
so a protected group. See my point? They're marginalized. They're protected. They've been historically oppressed in this country, so they're entitled to special protection. We can't say things about that, but I guess on this show we can get away with it. So he's questioning, why don't they attack them? They have nothing in common with them. Nothing whatsoever. And he answers his question. He says the left has no fear of Christians. No matter how much the left mocks and undermines Christianity, the left always assumes that they'll do nothing. Well, we've proven them right for the last 40 years, haven't we?
Absolutely.
And again, nobody's suggesting there be a forced revival. That's not what we're asking here. We're not talking about forced conversions. We're just talking about defending what little bit of faith you have left.
And some common decency.
Just common decency, politeness, kindness,
Yeah.
Judge not lest you be judged. Both ways.
Don't you love the fact that it's always our side that gets accused of being the angry, violent type folks? Yet if you go on social media, and Chris, I at the height of some of your campaigns, I had the misfortune of having access to your inbox. And let me tell you, people, the stuff that he was getting sent, the threats, just the the well wishes, we'll call it.
Well, here's the thing. You know you've reached the pinnacle of intellectual thought when they can't even spell words correctly.
Yeah. And they invent curse words. I mean, they came up with some new ones I'd never heard.
Some very unusual phrases. But look, what do you do with people like this?
Yeah.
They're emotional creatures, and that's okay. I'm not going to dislike them because they're emotional, but that doesn't mean they're rational. It's more like they just get angry and start spitting about, as my grandmother might say. And we've seen this before. And I think, the right can sometimes do that as well, but it seems to be a disproportionate percentage of people on the American left. Well, going back to Prager just for a second, he said, first of all, he says they don't fear Christians. Okay, point made. He says, number two, the second reason is, he goes, this shocked me, but he may be onto something. He says, they have a philosophical ally, radical Islam. He says, they don't agree on issues, but they agree on the most important issue. They hate the West as much as radical Islam does. Did you think about that? Wow. He's suggesting there's a parallel. He's saying that the liberals of this country hate Western civilization and the church. So too does Islam or Muslims. And that creates the friend of my friend, the enemy of my friend is my whatever. You've heard that line your whole life.
I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, here we go. Seems like he might be onto something here, but just by saying that, I guess we've crossed some boundaries. I want to be clear about this. This is a country that has to respect thought and religion. You may not agree with Christianity. It may reject your worldview. That doesn't give you the right to mock it or ridicule it. There has to be balance in the force, so to speak, and we've lost that here. And I think Prager might be onto something, and I just hope this thing doesn't continue, because I don't see how anybody can defend what happened the other night.
I don't either.
Now, with that said, Jack, this might be a good time to thank our sponsors before we get into Kamala Harris.
That'll work. All right, so let's go right into this, Chris. This year has come with a lot of uncertainties. Will red-hot inflation continue? Will interest rates continue to soar? How can the Fed promise a soft landing when all signs point to another serious recession? If the beginning of this year has shown us one thing, inflation is not slowing down, and the Fed is completely incapable of fixing these issues. Like millions of other Americans, I've found myself asking, how am I going to protect myself and my family? That's why we at the Midnight Ride Network spoke to the folks at Genesis Gold Group, our new platform partner for the Midnight Ride. They walked me through how I can protect my savings with real physical gold and silver. Genesis makes it easy to convert your 401k or your IRA into a retirement account backed by precious metals like gold and silver. Genesis Gold Group has decades of experience helping folks just like you preserve your hard-earned savings. The service provided to their clients is also truly one of a kind. Call Genesis Gold today at 800-200-GOLD for a no-commitment informative consultation with one of their experts to find out if Genesis Gold can be a fit for you. That's 800-200-4653 or visit them at midnightridegold.com. And when it comes to protecting you and your family's future, I'm excited to share with you another one of the Midnight Ride's new sponsors, Prepper Beef. Prepper Beef offers a range of freeze-dried beef in freezer boxes with steaks and roast made from high-quality, all-American cattle. These products are made to last for up to 20 years, ensuring that you have access to premium beef for decades to come. By supporting Prepper Beef, you're not just buying beef, you're supporting American ranchers, values, and your family. Join us in our mission to eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Visit midnightridebeef.com and stock up for your future today. And Chris, before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, because the Midnight Ride has started putting out more of the cartoon shorts. Have you seen the latest one that we've put out on the Midnight Ride?
I heard it was really good.
It's George Washington has a major endorsement announcement on the Midnight Ride.
So would they have a seance, pull him in?
No, he's alive and well in cartoon form.
I like it. I like it. Well, I guarantee you, if he's endorsing somebody, I'm sure it's Donald Trump.
It was, in fact, Donald Trump, and you can check it. And it's really been a cartoon that is blown up on social media. So check it out.
They do a good
today.
job with those. Midnight Ride does a great job with those.
Yes, they do.
No doubt about it. I was looking here at a few of the comments on the feed. Mm-hmm. And some of our friends out there are actually picking up where we're heading. Here's a comment here that says liberals confuse equality with equity. And it says, there's another comment that seems to be, what they're distinguishing is between the opportunity of beginning and the opportunity of ending. In other words, we all, are created equal. How we end up, though, could be vastly more unequal depending on how hard we work and where we're from and 1,000 other factors that play in a role. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about concepts of Western civilization. By the way, capitalism is a big component of Western civilization. Western civilization has defended capitalism since its very inception, particularly against the communists when they came to power in the first part of the 1900s. And we still would think are actively trying to defend it, but even capitalism, we're starting to lose ground in parts of Europe. You see a rising socialist tide there. Here in this country, if Ms. Harris is elected, you're going to see a rising socialist tide even here. So they're attacking Christianity, they're attacking capitalism. And one of the cornerstones of capitalism is the idea that people can be somewhat self-interested, but so much so that it makes the country even better than before because of that profit motive. And we work hard and have success, and it drives people forward to do things normally they may not otherwise choose to do. So the question here, and she's getting to it, is what equality means. And we're going to have to ask Ms. Harris that question. What does she think equality means? To me, equality means you're treated the same under the law. To me, it means that you have a chance to achieve. In other words, you don't have roadblocks in your way, that everybody has the same upward possible momentum. That's not what she believes when she says equality. She wants equality of outcome. We'll get to that in a second. It's dangerous because you can't have equality of outcome without force and coercion and loss of liberty. It's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive, it's counter-Western civilization, counter-capitalism, which goes to our earlier point that somebody's waging a war against the West. Now, Harris, have you seen all this brouhaha about Republicans claiming, which I believe accurately so, that she was a DEI hire?
Yeah, and they're trying to play the game to try to, again, we knew this was coming. Any attacks against Kamala Harris is going to be spun into racist, sexist. We knew this was coming, and pointing out her as a DEI hire, somebody that, again, let's not forget, just a year ago, Democrats wanted off the ticket.
What's the criteria? Okay, when we think about DEI hiring, I'm just saying, we've seen this take place in workforces throughout the country. We've seen it take place in universities throughout the country. And one of the criteria is that you must have a person of color in a position, even if the person of color is not qualified. Is that a fair assessment of a DEI hire?
I think it is.
Another question. So let me get this straight. If they hired her, if Biden selected her, because she was a woman, that would fit the definition of a DEI hire.
I think it does.
If he selected her because she was African American, that would fit the definition of a DEI hire, right?
It would.
This is especially true when there were so many more qualified people he could have hired.
There was a big list.
Let's not kid ourselves. She did awful during the presidential primary when she ran for the Democrat nomination. Not just bad, awful. Her own party ridiculed her. Everyone was on her back. She was terrible. And yet, she gets selected. That's also seems to have a touch of DEI to it, doesn't it? In other words, she's not qualified. She's not very good at what she does, and yet she still manages to advance.
Yeah.
I was under the impression this was a colorblind society.
I
hope one day we get to that. I hope one day we can move forward without having to see things through a prism of color. Like these knucklehead. Did you see these white dudes for Kamala?
That was the cringiest thing I have ever seen.
We may talk about that in a minute, but just goes back to what I'm saying. They did a fundraiser for her, and they said white dudes for Harris, whatever the case may be. Think about that. That seems to be in complete rejection to everything they preach.
It is.
But it's not because they preach one thing, but then they see the world through prisms of collectives. Race is a collective, gender is a collective. They don't see individuals. They don't care about individuals. They care about collectives, because collectives are where the force is. And they can get these collectives mad, and they can wield political power, right? So long as the collectives are super mad. That's what we're doing here. Going back to the point, though, is she a DEI hire? I think Biden's words back that up. July the 20th of that year he was nominated, MSNBC, he was asked, are you committed to naming a black woman as your vice presidential running mate? He went under this long line and basically said yes. Why was that question even asked?
Because again, you have to be in the prism of race.
The question should be, do you have anybody out there that's outstanding that would make a great VP? How cringeworthy would it be if Donald Trump were asked the same question about Vance with the roles being reversed? Will you promise you'll give us a white man for your VP pick? That's disgusting. That's not the way life is supposed to be. No. But they get away with this stuff. The point is, I find these old quotes where it was clear, historically speaking, that she was hired solely because she was a black woman. If that's not a DEI hire, I don't know what is. Now, granted, I see why it's offensive, but if it is offensive, isn't it because they made the rules?
Yeah.
Is it offensive for pointing out something they did that was offensive?
Yes.
Is this the moon battery phase we're in right now in this country?
Absolutely.
I think it is. You know, there was a Governor Whitmer, you might remember, she was rumored early on to get this job that Harris ended up getting. And after the George Floyd thing, she backed out and endorsed Harris.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the racial component. But we point that out and we're the bad guys. Republicans point that out and they're being dishonest or disingenuous or somehow hateful. I don't see it. They created the rules, we're playing by the rules, and we're the bad guys for saying so.
Yeah, and they stated the rules themselves. They said that they were going down that playbook. Biden's own words that you just read told you that, and yet somehow by pointing that out, you're a sexist.
I tell you what's been remarkable. Now I'm off script. Here we go. I tell you what's truly been. Here's what's been remarkable. We rock along here, and we watch Biden just completely fall to pieces because mentally he just wasn't there. We watched an old guy try to hold on to those reins of power as long as he could, but he just wasn't there. So his own party just turns against him, and they do what politicians do. They basically put a knife in his back.
They absolutely did.
They put a knife in his back, and then when he's limping out with a knife in his back, they praise him for being a great guy.
Yeah, he's a patriot.
That's Washington.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Consider this. Again, I'm off script now, but this has been baffling to me. Ms. Harris, she's routinely seen as someone who's underachieving. No legacy, no policy achievements.
Nope.
The one thing we think, and they're trying to refute this now, that she was actually supposed to handle was the southern border, and that's been a national crisis, right?
Yeah.
She can point to nothing. 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 And yet, have you noticed, since she was announced, since he stepped out, she's the greatest thing in the history of American politics. She went from somebody, this is the national press now, this is what they do to people. Even they were criticizing her. Worst poll numbers of any BP in history. She's a drag on the ticket. Are they going to replace Ms. Harris? We heard this for years before she finally achieved this feat of becoming their selected candidate.
Being necessary.
And now the press, completely different spin.
Yep.
That's what we're up against. That's what Trump is up against. All of a sudden, she's the greatest thing in the world. She's charismatic. She's fascinating. She's quick on her feet. She's the greatest political candidate we've seen in our lifetimes. She's awful. What's the one thing that's changed? Just consider that. The only thing that's changed between all that hyper-criticism and all the hyper-praise, the only thing that's changed is that Biden dropped out.
Yep, she became necessary because she was the easiest path. So therefore, despite all of her deficiencies, because let's be honest, and again, we're probably going to get in trouble when I say this, she is an extremely flawed candidate. Yet they're going to prop her up and try to gaslight the American public into believing that she's something more than she is. They already are doing it.
It's crazy because the numbers are mind-blowing. But it goes to show how the press controls public opinion. I mean, now Biden's a statesman. Have you noticed that?
I did.
the bravest thing a man's ever done in politics.
So selfless.
He gave a speech in Austin today. And of course, Austin's that blue dot in the middle of red Texas.
Yeah.
But he gave a speech there, and he got a standing ovation. It was kind of like the good Lord had come back to address. Well, they wouldn't like him. They wouldn't like the Lord coming back. It would have to be somebody equipped like Gandhi. If Gandhi came to address Austin, he would get a standing ovation. Same thing happened to Biden. He's now being seen as this father figure statesman who's done the right thing. After they stabbed him in the back, they're redefining his legacy as we speak. But they're not just redefining his legacy. They're forgiven all of her oddities. Mm-hmm. They've forgiven the coconut trees and the electric school buses. They've forgiven all these weird things she said. This word salad that always pops out of her mouth when she speaks. It's nonsensical.
Yep.
They've forgiven it. Now she's brilliant. It's evidence of rhetorical brilliance. She's quick. She's sharp. She's wonderful. No, it's always just Miss Harris. But the numbers are crazy. She went from being deeply disliked to now having Obama-esque talent in roughly a week.
I've noticed, yes.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Every interview is glowing. Every clip they show on CNN, she's smiling just right. And those jokes, those great one-liners, she said today, "Say it to my face." Have you seen that one?
I saw that.
Oh,
yeah.
that was so powerful. And she didn't write that.
No.
She didn't write that.
No, they went to her because she was coachable. That's why they went. I'm sorry, it's the truth. She's coachable.
I'm all script, and I shouldn't be this angry about these things. I'm really not angry. I'm trying to point out how the Democrats behave and how they operate. Man, I would hate to have Democrats as close friends in this world.
Because the second they view you as less than useful,
Down.
that knife is going right back in your back.
In fairness, I had Republican friends.
That's what I was going to say.
So I've kind of been down this path.
So it's just politics then.
With my own party, I guess so. It's disgusting human beings on both sides.
Yeah.
But I've been down this route. On one hand, it's like, oh, hey man, he's a rising star. He's the up and comer. He announces he's going to stay at Congress, and now he's the most vile human being on the
You didn't wait your
face of the
turn.
planet.
How could you not wait your turn?
Well, look what waiting our turn has gotten us.
Yeah.
$35 trillion in debt, no end in sight. Speaking of debt, hold on, we gotta get back on script here. Run out of time. Ms. Harris has a big decision to make. Big decision to make. She's got to select a VP, and she needs someone to help her in some of these swing states. Again, all the polling now shows she's surging in the. Why are we falling for this? Why don't we let people watch the news and believe this stuff? It sounds like she's in the lead now.
It does.
Are we supposed to lose faith? We're supposed to quit working? That's what they're hoping.
That's exactly why they're pushing on.
They're trying to show a narrative here where she's surging and Trump can't blunt that momentum and there's nothing we can do, and it's only going to get better for her after the convention. That's what they're going to say.
Yep.
No, it's not. We're still 100 days away. Everybody relax. We've got this.
Harris is still Harris. It's
going to be okay.
She's going to be. She gets her news from Sesame Street. So I mean, how much can we? How much faith can you have in her?
We'll see. We'll see. Now here's the thing. It gets really interesting because she needs to get a good VP. We talked about Mark Kelly from Arizona.
Yeah.
He's an astronaut.
I think he's the best choice.
How can you go wrong?
I don't want to see him because I think he is the best choice.
How can you go with an astronaut and a fighter pilot, right?
No.
But there's this other guy, the Shapiro fellow.
I saw.
And he's dangerous as well. The reason he's dangerous is Pennsylvania is a state that Trump needs to win.
Yep.
And right now, it looks like he has a little bit of a lead there. Here's the thing. The selection of Shapiro could turn that over overnight.
Yep.
Have you seen his approval ratings
I have.
in Pennsylvania? Holy smoke, 61% in Pennsylvania. That's an incredible approval rating for a modern politician. That's like Roosevelt days, man. Kennedy, before he, his first 3 months in office.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are high numbers.
Yeah.
So the thought being, if they were to select Shapiro, that Pennsylvania would now be in play. Not just in play, but they would secure the state. And that's probably the case. So tough decision to be made for her. Does she try to pick up someone that's strong on law and order? Maybe helps her with immigration? Maybe helps her secure Arizona fully with Kelly? Or does she make the decision to come over to Shapiro? You know what? He's Jewish, by the way.
He is.
And this is really interesting because another dynamic into her making her decision, again, one would think that would be a box to check. Marginalized, check, right? But remember, the two groups of people that can't catch a break nowadays are Christians and Jews. Have you noticed that?
That is fair.
there's an element within the Democratic Party that's already seeking to capsize his potential nomination.
Just because he's Jewish?
They would never say that.
But I mean, again, I'm saying
probably. If you want to find anti-Semitism in this country, it's going to be in the Democratic Party.
I agree.
You think those flag bearers and these Hamas rallies aren't Democrats?
They absolutely are.
Absolutely they are. So right now they're trying to capsize his nomination. Now, it's not because he's Jewish. They can never bring themselves to say that. It's that he made some comments that were anti-Hamas protesters at the university campuses. Mm-hmm. So they're after his nomination.
Wow.
Again, how fickle must these people be? They have a chance to pick up Pennsylvania with this one nomination. They're gonna not let him get it because he actually said something positive about Israel.
That's crazy to me.
Lord, help us if this woman wins. She will throw the world in turmoil if she wins this race.
Did you happen to see what Joe Rogan, the comedian where he said he fears that she might win because the media is already putting it out there and fears that the American public will gaslight themselves.
Look, it's part of it. I think he's getting caught up, though, in this momentum surge that we're sensing. And look, I'm sensing it too.
Yeah.
But there's 100 days left.
Oh, yeah, plenty of time.
And campaigns do this all the time.
Peaks and valleys.
It's constant. And the idea is, not that I'm very good at this, but you want to peak. You want to peak at the right time.
Look, we were good at peaking early.
You want to peak at the right time. So I don't know where that's going to head, but I'm not panicked yet. Now,
why would you be?
After the convention, if she's able to give a stirring speech that shows leader and commander qualities, and she's tough on crime and all of this, and they repoll this thing and it's 5 or 6 points, then I'm going to be a bit more concerned. But the real Harris will eventually arrive. She can't hide behind teleprompters forever.
No.
She can't hide behind that ultra-liberal record forever. It's coming out. We know who she really is. And part of that is this idea of equity. I have a quote here that's going to blow your mind if I can find it in my collection of papers. Because she said something a few years ago that goes right to the heart of this war against Western civilization. Remember, I said earlier that there's different views of the word equality. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, equality of starting point versus equality of outcome. We all start here, no obstacles, the law protects us all, equal protection under the law, and then we race to get wherever we want to get. The pursuit of happiness, as the founders may have said. Some people pursue it differently. Some folks choose to go into professions that don't pay a lot because they give back to their community, right? That's a big deal. Think about teachers. They don't make a lot of money, but they touch thousands of lives. And they voluntarily don't make a ton of money to touch thousands of lives. Whereas others that may be really hard pushing people that aren't terribly concerned about, touching lives, are more concerned about making big money, go into separate fields where they make millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? So bear in mind, the reason there's inequality of wealth is because of all these various conditions that occur. Choices that people make throughout their lifetimes. Some choices noble, some choices not noble, some choices positive, some not positive. Some get great wealth, some get benefits from other ways. But there's always going to be some inequality at the end of the day, right? In other words, you can't guarantee equality of outcome. That's the lesson. Listen to these words from February 2021. This is Ms. Harris speaking. And again, it all sounds so nice until you go to apply it to policy. These are her words, not mine. She says, "We have always fought for equality, but now we are also talking much more rightly about equity. Understanding that we must be clear-eyed about the fact that, yes, we want everyone to get an equal amount. That sounds right, but not everyone starts out from the same place. Some people start out on first base, some start out on third base, and if the goal is truly about equality, it has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end in the same place." Stop. Full stop. Those are her words. Everybody should end in the same place. Now that sounds wonderful. It is a beautiful platitude, and I'm sure it would make a great children's book. Policy, what does that look like? It's force.
Yes.
It's coercion. It's mandates. It's the destruction of an economy. And yes, the reversal of hundreds of years of Western civilization, the death of capitalism. That's what she's suggesting here.
Absolutely.
Again, this sounds so nice, and the Democrats all applaud. Policy speaking, that's the most dangerous mindset in the world. That's not even liberal. That's communist.
Yeah.
That's Marx. That's Marx speaking through her. Now, you want to go that route because it sounds great. That's fine. I hope your warm and fuzzies keep you up at night, because we've seen these approaches in other countries and what happens. Whether it's North Korea or Venezuela or the old Soviet Union. Economies falter, it falls to pieces, and people, real people, suffer. The greatest system of economic mobility in the history of the world is capitalism. It has made more people wealthy and given more of us more opportunity than anything else imaginable. If you're in this country and you're poor, you're still wealthy by world standards. Let me try to explain that for a second. Do you realize that the state of poverty was a constant for literally thousands of years? Did you know that? If there's a graph that shows mankind through thousands of years, constant poverty. Poverty is the status quo. That's what occurs if you do nothing. So the real question from a policy-making standpoint is, how do you give people a chance to rise out of poverty? And Adam Smith, the components and the philosophers that pushed capitalism, figured out a way to make the human mind and human ambition work in favor of not just the individual, but everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's capitalism. Is it a perfect system? Of course not. No system created by man is a perfect system. There are going to be flaws. But of all the flaws, it's still the best system imaginable for giving people opportunity. That chart would remain constant for 1,000 or more years. And then all of a sudden, in the 1700s, what happened? Productivity took off.
Yep.
Markets were opened. People became prosperous. And we're so prosperous today. Everybody I know has got a couple of flat screen TVs. You got a microwave oven. Phones. We are still the most prosperous country in existence. And this crazy lady, by logic like that, would destroy that for something that feels good. For an applause line or a cheap rally. This is who she is. Joe Biden was never a threat to you. He was an institution of the Senate. He'd been there for 50 years. He was never going to do anything that was remarkably liberal. She will, given 100%. The opportunity. That's why this election is so important. You're talking about a true believer here. No, I'm not saying she's evil. No, I don't think she's a bad person. But her philosophy leads to one result. Have you ever seen the satellite image over North Korea and South Korea at night?
I think I have, yes.
All right. Google it when you get a chance. It's a peninsula, as you know. Mm-hmm. We all know about the unpleasant war that took place there in the early 50s, yep. Right? Okay. And what occurred? South Korea maintained its sovereignty on the lower part of the peninsula, North Korea on the upper part of the peninsula. Yep. Satellite imagery over that country to this day shows the vast difference in what communism will give you as opposed to what capitalism will give you. South Korea lit up. Municipal centers, cities, commerce, bustling, lights from space you can see. North Korea, empty, dark, backwards. That's what this mindset gets you. Now, it might feel good. You might like it. History tells us otherwise, and I can't go down that path. Can you?
No, I can't, Chris. And again, that people need to think, because again, there's so many folks out there that, for whatever reason, they just don't like Donald Trump or whatever the case. Maybe they've just never liked Republicans.
You better figure it out.
This is a dangerous philosophy. Again, to your point, we're not saying she's evil, but her ideas are dangerous, and I think that's fair to say. They like to say that Trump is dangerous. You hear that rhetoric from them all the time. But I'm looking at true dangerous philosophy. This woman, I think it was in 2020, she actually called herself a radical. She said it herself that she was a radical.
Remember, she was at the time leading up to her nomination and her eventual becoming vice president. She was trying to run to the left of everybody. Yep. And she did. Yep. Her voting record was to the left of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is an avowed socialist. Yep. So she's from California. That's strike one. Strike two, her philosophy seems to be completely based in nonsense. But whether it's word salad or not, it's a dangerous philosophy. And that's why this election is so dadgum important. Trump may make you angry, but he's not going to bankrupt this country. No. Not in the sense that communism or socialism would. Speaking of Trump, I'm going to wrap up with J.D. Vance because, here's what's going on there. I'm off script again. J.D. Vance in my mind, I have some concerns. I talked about those last time. I mean, this guy rose from nowhere pretty fast with some billionaire backers out there. Let's not kid ourselves. There's some very powerful interests that have a vested interest in Mr. J.D. Vance getting this position. Causes me some concern. Yet at the same time, the things that he's saying, the things that he's done, it's driving the Democrats crazy.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy.
Me too.
Makes me very happy. So he seems to be saying, even his past statements, now granted, I didn't like how hostile he was toward Trump.
No.
Here's the thing: if you've had a couple of beliefs about Trump you were not happy with, how about you just keep that to yourself? We're trying to save the country here, JD. But he was really hostile.
Very much so.
And that I didn't like that a whole lot.
An MSNBC guest, frequent guest.
He was. Now listen, I don't mind some criticism. Every president deserves criticism, but he went over the top. Comparing him to Hitler, that's a bit far.
Kind of an opioid.
Yeah. Now here's here's the thing though. But he's also said some things that are making the American left really upset, and that gets my attention because when they're happy, when they're upset, normally we're supposed to be fairly happy. But then I begin to drill down on their panic over J.D. Vance. Now, how do you know they're panicked? Because if he's as bad as they claim he is, they wouldn't be as angry as they are.
And they'd ignore
They would ignore. Here's the thing. He says something about childless cat ladies.
I saw that, yeah.
I mean, in the overall spectrum of American political discourse, that's hardly offensive.
I agree.
Now, I'm going to be in trouble for saying that, but think about all the things we've heard and seen over the last 10 years. I mean, people of Capitol Hill cursing during committee hearings. People are fighting.
You got a presidential candidate having a vulgar perform a vulgar song.
Today.
Yeah,
Today. What was that rapper's name?
Megan Thee Stallion.
The fact you know that's appalling.
I only know it because I've got the article in front of me.
Anyway, she said some really nasty things today. I mean, that was horrible, some of the things she said.
Yeah.
And yet they're trying to make this Vance childless cat lady quote like the end of his career. Give me a break.
It's ridiculous.
That barely even gets most people's attention, and not to mention the fact that he said it tongue in cheek, but it makes him mad because there's a kernel of truth to some of the things he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are very unhappy people.
Very much so.
I mean, I said that on Facebook a few years ago during the Million Women March.
Oh,
I was
goodness.
eviscerated for that. But these are relatively very unhappy people. I've never seen a more unhappy group of people. So he says this, and now all of a sudden he can't. Now, he did say something that was intriguing about childless individuals. He's not a big fan of them for some reason. That doesn't bother me. I mean, I wish he wouldn't say that because I think people have different reasons for not having children. Trust me. By the time they're 17, you start second guessing all of it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
They eat all your food. They break all the stuff in the house. If you could do it all over again, I don't know. That's a joke. I love my kids. But the thing is, it's not so much he's against childless people. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's suggesting that people with children have a little bit more of a vested stake in the future. It logically, rationally, that kind of makes sense because you're leaving a legacy. And he's saying, he made the comment once that perhaps those people deserve an extra vote or two in the ballot box. And that's not going to be constitutional. That's never going to happen. But I think he said it to reinforce the notion that if you do have children, there is a vested interest in the future and that you should have a positive say in that. Yeah. But again, they're taking that and making it sound like he's just awful. And now all of a sudden I'm kind of liking him because the harder they hit him makes me think he's on to something. Because if this is the best they've got, they don't have a whole lot. No. They hit him today on some comments he made about the gymnast. What's her name? The African-American gymnast is so darn good. Simone?
Yeah, Simone. That's it.
She's good.
Very good.
I mean, incredible talent. But a few years ago, I think it was 2020, she had to drop out of the Olympics in Tokyo. She was having some emotional problems or something, remember?
Yes, it was like a mental health issue.
And that's fine. I mean, we all get that. And he made some comments about it, and at first I read the headline and I said, oh my gosh, what did he say about her? Because she's like America's sweetheart, right?
Yeah.
And all he said he was just pointing out that people shouldn't get awards for a therapeutic society. He was saying he understood it was stressful. He understood it was difficult, right? We all do. But he said making her a hero for quitting seems to be a bit problematic.
I tend to agree with that.
Well, because that's a rational response to an event that was unfolding. He wasn't hateful.
No.
He wasn't mean. He said being an athlete at that level is incredibly tough. And he said a normal a moment might be to say it's a shame that that it's tough and I need to go home. But he says you don't make heroes out of that. He called this part of our therapeutic moment, our therapeutic nation. There's a kernel of truth there. We seem to be so preoccupied with feelings that sometimes we miss the bigger components. Now, she had to make that call for herself. I don't begrudge her for that.
No.
She's an incredible gymnast, incredible athlete. If she had to make that call, I completely get it because the stress is over the top. And apparently, when you're in gymnastics, it actually can impact your ability to be safe.
Yes.
So the fact that she stepped down is no real issue with me. I don't think it really was with him.
No.
But the press wants to take every possible word he's ever said and twist it as something that it is not, and to make him to be a less desirable vice presidential candidate. And the fact that they're hitting him so hard makes me like him even more.
Well, it's crazy too. I mean, one of their biggest attacks now is J.D. Vance is weird. And yet, have they looked at the people that they're promoting? Have they looked at the folks within their party?
The weird thing has gotten to be more of a... I saw Harris use that phrase, not about him, but just about, the campaign in general. They're weird. They're weird. That's going to be a catchphrase they utilize. What they're really saying is they're not hip. They're not cool.
Yeah,
that's what they say. But they're trying to hold on to the youth vote, and at the same time hold on to the women vote. And I get that. But it's just it's not fair. And frankly, again, going back to their whole philosophy of life, right? I thought they were supposed to be tolerant and kind and polite and dignified. Why would you attack someone for being weird? That seems very hateful. Does it not?
Yeah, it really does.
Frankly, all of us are a little bit weird. Harris is weird. Biden was super weird. Sometimes we all are weird. But I don't think it's fair to disparage him completely for just having a couple of bad statements in the past. Look, man, we all have a record. And we've all have said things that we probably shouldn't have said. Furthermore, we all have said things that can be completely taken out of context and misconstrued. And that's happened to me. I know what that feels like. And so when I see the American left going apocalyptic over him, it makes me think maybe they're onto something. And I keep hearing them say Trump needs to change. Trump needs to change his VP pick. Why are they trying to give Trump political advice? Have you considered that? I thought they were trying to beat Trump. Why are they trying to give him political advice?
When I saw that's when I was like, yeah, I think he's got the right guy. When the left is trying to tell him he needs to switch, again, this is the same people that before they stabbed Joe Biden in the back, they were trying to get him to kick Harris off the ballot. Yeah. Now she's the queen. I tell you, man, we're in wacky land right now. We are.
And it's going to get a lot worse. People just don't understand how disconnected people are right now. And look, I think it's fair and fine to criticize people in politics. I do.
I agree.
But I also think it needs to be fair criticism. And I don't think it's fair to twist these words all to pieces, some things he said so many years ago. And again, in the overall context of things, the cat lady quote, I mean, I'm sure that upset some cat ladies. But I don't, it just doesn't rise to the level of offensiveness in this modern age, does it?
I mean, first off, if we are told that we should just accept the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, then shouldn't they just accept that J.D. Vance is okay to say something about cat ladies?
Well, listen, in fairness, I like cats.
I do too.
And I don't want one day this show to be misconstrued that somehow I'm anti-cat. And they'll do it unless we clarify it right now. This is not about cats.
No.
Okay, that's a good way to end this.
And I'm a childless adult, so it's not about adults without children.
Oh man, I don't know anymore. I think we try to have a good time here. We try to laugh about these things because literally the world has gone berserk.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to just laugh, but at the same time you have to recognize just how problematic this could get.
Because we are living in the dumbest timeline.
This is the dumbest timeline, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Guys, thank you for being a part of this. We always have a good time. As always, comments, emails are always welcome. Jack, thank you for being here. This is Chris McDaniel's America, part of the Midnight Ride Network, the country's anti-establishment network. Come back and join us next time. We'll see you then.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back.
The MyPillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, MyPillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took MyPillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that MyPillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. MyPillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of MyPillow.
The MyPillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last MyPillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. MyPillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.